Okay, hi there. Welcome to my 8.4. Um, so George did the 35-meter sprint. His result was 5 seconds and 20 milliseconds. As you can see, the normative data for the average time was 5:10 seconds to 5:29 seconds. He was in the average bracket. So this result was, of course, average for his age and his gender. Um, and the client George's strength when doing this test was that he had a good technique and his arms were quite close to his body, they weren't out wide, so he had a good technique. However, the weaknesses were that his legs were a bit wider and he wasn't taking long enough strides, so this was his physical weakness. The improvement to stop this could just be moving his legs closer together when running so they're not out wide, and just taking longer strides so you can cover more distance with each step. The weakness of this test was that it was actually done outside, and this means that there was actually wind coming against George when he was running. So when he was running, he had the wind coming against him, which meant he had more force applied to him in the opposite direction. So perhaps if this was done in an inside environment where there was no forces acting against him, he would be able to get a better time than this, which might move him up a bracket to the good. So ways in which George could improve this time could also be like physical changes. Could be that he could do some sprint training, so that is just doing constant sprints when he is ready, doing as many of them as he can, so the muscle memory and the strength in his legs improves, so he can become faster. And you can also do some weight training, which I'll go into later, to help improve that explosive power in his legs. So when he starts, he gets a really good start, and then he's able to keep producing force as he's going along. So moving on to his second test, the vertical jump, George's score was 38 centimetres, which puts him in the below average bracket, as he was 31 to 40 centimetres between there. This was obviously not the best result he could have hoped for because it was below the average. Um, but George's strength when doing this test was that he had a good technique. There was nothing wrong with his technique at all. He used the arms to give him momentum and everything that you're meant to do. Um, but the weaknesses of it was that he just didn't quite have enough power in his legs to really propel himself higher to get in those good super brackets of the data, normative data. Um, the ways in which he could improve this could be doing something called plyometric training, and this is basically explosive, like jump training, some call it, that is just focused on increasing the amount of fast twitch fibers in your legs to just give you that massive boost and that huge burst in the muscles when you do something like a vertical jump. The weaknesses of the test that we did was that when actually doing the test, it was quite difficult to get an exact reading on what the client actually got. So, as it was just marked by eye, so we would see where they marked on the board, and then we would mark that marking with a pen, and that was that. We had, and then we'd measure how far it was. So, just perhaps if we were to have more expensive, better equipment, we'd be able to get a really exact reading of how high George actually jumped. So moving on to the 1 rep max, George's score was 32 kilograms, which just puts him under the average, which is 35 kilograms. Um, he had again good technique on this test. Um, he had his feet wide apart, nice swing as he brought the barbell up. Um, However, his weaknesses was again that he was just perhaps not strong enough, and also that he had been doing tests before that, before the 1 rep max test on the day. So he'd also done a 35-meter sprint and a vertical jump before this. So this means he had already used a lot of his body's energy, which it had, and he hadn't eaten or drank much in between this either, so he couldn't have even refueled. So this could maybe affect his final outcome. The weaknesses of this test was that same reason that I've just said, and that he was doing tests before it. That's not a weakness of the actual test, but it would make the test not as fair as if he were doing it first time. Um, Training to improve this is just heavy weightlifting of repetitions from 4 to 8, and the reason the reps are so small is because training as heavy as you can with smaller reps is the best way to get stronger. So if George is doing this 4 to 8 reps with as heavy as he possibly can to do these reps with, this will be a really, really good way to improve his strength on the bicep curl. The sit and reach test, George's score was 34 centimeters, which actually puts him at the super data bracket. So yeah, George's technique on this was of course very good. He had his legs straight, reached out as far as he could in front, and had his hands there for more than 5 seconds, which is perfect. No weaknesses on this test for George, hence why he got such a good mark, and his technique was good, really good, flawless. The weaknesses of the test, again, I couldn't find any myself, as we had the proper equipment, which was the sit and reach bench, put it up against the wall so that it wasn't going to move around at all, and George was able to hold his fingers there for more than 5 seconds, so there were no flaws in the test itself either. Even if, I mean, it's not important that he needs to, but if he wanted to improve his flexibility, it would just be doing a lot of stretching on a weekly basis. So even before exercise, like even when he's not before exercise, still doing some flexibility training like yoga or even PNF stretching, which is partner assisted, to help push those muscles a bit further than you would normally would, just to keep your muscles constantly relaxed and elasticated. The Harvard step test, George got his starting heart rate was 59 BPM and his end heart rate was 60 BPM, so it's only gone up 1 beat at the end of this test. So anything below 96 at the end of this test is excellent. So George has absolutely breezed past that test. He's got a really good mark there. And the weaknesses of this test was that perhaps of someone like George's fitness, as he is a long distance swimmer, there could be maybe harder variants of it. So if there was a harder version of this where he perhaps had to go faster to measure a higher recovery rate, this could be beneficial for someone who is as fit as George is. His personal strengths on this test was that he is just very aerobically fit, so that was why I was able to get such a small distance between his start and finish heart rate. His weaknesses, again, were none. He exceeded the excellent bracket and got a really good test result. But maybe if this test was done maybe 2 or 3 times, we only did it once. If it was done 3 times, maybe we might get some differences between the two. A way to improve this, even though George doesn't need to, obviously, is by doing something called just moderate intensity cardio training. So this is just to improve your all-round fitness, burn fat, keep that recovery rate increasing every time and decreasing, every time in time. So he has a lower resting heart rate to start with even, and then hopefully by the time he finishes, if he's been doing a lot of moderate intensity cardio training, he will also have a really quick recovery time too. So on to the final test, the 1.5 mile run. George, again, as he is very aerobically fit, he did it in 8 minutes and 10 seconds, and anything below 9 minutes and 44 seconds is in the super category for a male, so he's got the maximum category there. The strengths of this, again, was that George's specific strengths was that he has very good aerobic fitness, which meant he was able to complete the test at a really nice steady rate, which was actually fast, and then there and back, so the whole way. The weaknesses, again, none for George, as he did really exceed the normative data, the super category. The weaknesses of the test, however, was that George actually did get caught at some traffic lights, as it was done in a public environment where there were crossing roads involved. So if George didn't get caught at these traffic lights, he would have been able to keep going this whole time. I think he got caught at 2 traffic lights in total, where he was waiting there for maybe 30 to 40 seconds. So he really could have really beat his time if he were to have not been at these traffic lights. So that was an environmental issue of the test, just like the 35-meter sprint. So yeah, even though George did well in this, if he wanted to increase his aerobic endurance even more, it's just, again, do moderate intensity cardio training. So just, again, increase that steady state endurance and how long he can go for that, how long his threshold will push out till. So now on to the workouts that I have recommended George should do to help improve him. And when I did a questionnaire with George, he told me that he wanted to improve his muscle mass, as when he was swimming he was experiencing some pain in his arms because his muscles were actually not long enough for the limbs that he's got now. So he wants to build muscle, also build muscle weight too. So on Monday of the first week, it's going to be a weight and plyometric training session, and as you can see across this whole week, the reps and sets are all the same, so I won't go over that every time I say the exercise. So he's going to start off with some bicep curls, 3 sets of them, tricep extensions, 3 sets, box jumps, so there's some plyometric explosive training, chest press, more weight training to improve that body weight, so backboard slaps, so I'm alternating from plyometric training to weight training here, lat pull downs for his back, and barbell hops also for his explosive power in his legs, so he can boost off that diving board, because George's sport is actually swimming. So when he starts, he's going to want a really big boost to start the race off, to get ahead of his opponents hopefully. Tuesday we're going to do the same exercises but in a different order, just to stop tedium setting in, which is just boredom. Hope George is not getting bored of doing the same exercise if we do them in a different order. So we're starting off with tricep extensions, then we'll go on to lat pull downs, bicep curls, lat pull downs, backboard slaps, chest press, and then also box jumps. So there again, another weight and plyometric training session. And then he'll have a rest day on the Wednesday, as he's done 2 quite intense workouts there, with high reps too. And the reason I've done for such high reps is because high reps is the best way to increase the size of the muscle, which is what George wants, because his muscles are not big enough for his limbs. So he needs to not only increase the size of them so it's not causing him pain, but also the strength and endurance of them, which doing high reps is extremely good for. So his Thursday session is another weight and plyometric session. He's going to start off with chest press, so the exercise is switched around again. Then some lat pull downs, box jumps for his plyo, bicep curls, barbell hops for more plyo, tricep extensions, and backboard slaps. So there's a nice even mix of plyo and weight training there. And then the final exercise of the week, she's doing 4 sessions per week. He's going to start off with the lat pull downs, then tricep extensions, barbell hops, chest press, backboard slaps, bicep curls, and box jumps. All the same reps and sets, as you can see. Now moving on to week 2. This will be George's final week training. All the exercises of this week have changed. They're going to go in a different order every session again, of course, to avoid that tedium. But the reason I've chosen for these exercises to change is because after 1 week of doing all those same exercises before, his body's going to be really used to doing those movements, so the muscle memory is going to be there for those exercises. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the plyometric the same, because it's important to have muscle memory in those muscles, but for the isolation weight training exercises, we're going to change it up, because otherwise his muscles are going to get too used to it and he's going to stop seeing as many results as he normally would. She's going to start off with some preacher curls, which is a different exercise for the biceps, and then we'll do some skull crushers, which is a different exercise for the triceps. Then we'll do some box jumps, which is the same as last week, and some chest flies, which is for the chest obviously, barbell hops, some dumbbell rows for his back, and then some scissor jumps. So we've also added in 1 new plyo exercise too. We've now also got for the second session, chest flies, scissor jumps, dumbbell rows, barbell hops, preacher curls, and box jumps. The same exercise again, just different order. For the Thursday session, chest flies, dumbbell rows, barbell hops, preacher curls, box jumps, skull crushers, and scissor jumps. Same reps, same different order again. And then for the last session of the whole thing, he's got preacher curls, skull crushers, box jumps, chest flies, dumbbell rows, and scissor jumps. So the Saturday session is the same as the Monday session, and that is to test how much better he copes with that same exercise, to see how much progression he's actually made just in 2 weeks. So if it is successful for him, he can keep doing this. That is it for my 8.4. Thank you for watching.